From WFIU in Bloomington, Indiana, I'm Kate Young, and this is Earth Eats.
Cooking came to me a little bit later in life. Holidays in my family were always a really big deal, especially around the meals. The meals were the most important part of kind of the holiday gathering. And I was pretty much the least useful person in the kitchen. It wasn't even into my mid-20s at Thanksgiving time, my mom would be like, Mark, you can take the pre-made Parkerhouse rolls out of the freezer and put them in the oven. That's all we trust you to do.
This week on the show, we join a mother and son in a family tradition that's kept them connected across the miles. Mark Chilla and his mother Gay tell the story and share the recipe for an Italian stuffed savory pie to celebrate the end of Lent in the Catholic faith. That story's just ahead. Stay with us. Thanks for listening to Earth Eats. I'm Kate Young. In strange and unpredictable times, leaning into traditions with friends and family can be comforting and possibly even grounding. Almost all traditional holidays involve food. Just looking at a few spring religious holidays, Nowruz, Passover, Ramadan, Holi, and Easter, they all have special foods tied to the celebrations, and they usually have symbolic significance. We're going to focus today on one of those special foods enjoyed in many Italian-American households at Easter time. I am here in the kitchen with Mark Chilla of WFIU fame. But we are here not to talk about radio, but to talk about a dish that he likes to prepare this time of year.
Dish is called pizza gain, is what we call it, but it's really pizza chiena, but the Italian dialect that my family says, it's pronounced pizza gain in our family. It is like an Italian Easter pie, basically.
But by pie, you mean savory pie.
It's a savory pie, so it is meat and cheese and eggs all in a dough in a springform pan. My family has been making it every single year. If you know any Italian family from the Northeast, chances are there's someone in their family's made some kind of variation of this.
What part of the Northeast do you mean? Northeast U.S.?
Yeah, Northeast U.S. I'm not sure what part of Italy it's from, but every Italian-American family that I've heard of has some version of this thing. So my family is from New Jersey. My grandmother made it. My mom's cousin Mary Lou made it. The recipe that I have right here is my mom's cousin Mary Lou's recipe that my mom then typed out into a word processor probably sometime in the 90s, printed out for me. It has grease stains all over it. It's seen some love. It has things crossed out because I've made a lot of changes to it. My mom has made some changes to it herself, and my mom made it every year. My mom still makes it every year. And then when I went off to college, I was sad because I never got to eat it anymore because I never got to go home for Easter. So at one point I was like, you know what? I'm going to make it. I'm going to go get all the ingredients for it. And my mom bought me this springform pan probably about 15, 20 years ago so I could make it. And so every year on Easter weekend, she makes her version. Down in Georgia, that's where she lives now. I make my version. We always talk about our recipes. And then typically, she'll freeze a piece of hers. And the next time I see her, which is usually a few weeks after Easter, because my birthday's around this time, she'll come up and she'll bring her frozen piece of pizza gain and we'll have hers, and I'll maybe share. If I still have some of mine, we'll share some of mine. So that's always fun to do because it's kind of a family tradition that happens from afar. So I did a little bit of prep work already for this. I chopped up all the different meats. I made the dough already, but we're going to assemble it. I still got a little more work to do to get this whole thing together.
Well, why don't you tell me what is your selection of meats? What have you put in there?
The cured meats that we have are boiled ham, Genoa salami, prosciutto, Italian dry sausage, and pepperoni. Those are the ones that have been given to me from this recipe. I started making it that way for a couple of years and realized I didn't like all of those, especially the Italian dry sausage. It has a very, very strong, pungent flavor, overwhelm the entire dish. So I've eliminated Italian dry sausage from my recipe altogether. Added a little bit more pepperoni because I like the taste of the pepperoni. I always add Genoa salami to it. Sometimes I do prosciutto. If I do prosciutto, I'll choose the cube prosciutto rather than like the super sliced thin prosciutto, because when you're chopping up the super sliced thin prosciutto, it just kind of like melts into the dish, and it might as well not even be there. This year I couldn't find the cubed prosciutto, so I found this like cubed pancetta. I'm gonna try it. Never done it before. And usually I swap out the ham for capicola. And they usually have mild capicola or hot capicola, and I just do the hot capicola, or gabagol as my grandmother would say it. But I went to the store yesterday. They don't sell capicola anymore at the deli counter, so I got ham. So we have ham, we have pancetta, we have Genoa salami, and we have pepperoni. Those are the ones that I ended up choosing this year. All told, it's about a pound of meat, a pound of some kind of cured ham product, sliced really small, just chopped up and diced, and then you just mix it up with some cheese and some eggs, and here we go. I chopped all the meat ahead of time, so I'm just gonna dump this in here. Got all of the Italian meats. How does it smell, Kate?
Oh, I really like the smell of the pepperoni.
Yeah.
It just hit me.
It smells really nice. I do have some fresh mozzarella here as well. I guess you could choose the not fresh mozzarella, but one thing that I do whenever I make this recipe is I go to the deli counter and I spend far too much money. I'm like, yeah, I could get the cheaper mozzarella, but I'm gonna get the really fancy stuff this time around. So when I was a poor college student making this recipe, it would like bankrupt me because I would be spending $50 on cured meats for this one recipe. But now I have a full-time job, so it's still expensive, but I can at least, I don't have to eat PB&Js for the next week just to make up for it.
It definitely feels like a kind of a luxury, a special dish, a holiday dish.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you want to get the good meat. You want to get the good cheese.
And so how are you preparing the mozzarella? You're just cutting it into cubes or strips or?
Precisely. I'm just going to cut it into cubes eventually. I'm just you sort of want the texture to be a little homogeneous, every bite to have small chunks of everything. Some meat, some cheese, some egg. So I'm trying to get the mozzarella into small little like 1/4-inch cubes basically. All right, I think that's about right. Most of these are about the right size. So I'm gonna add this to all of the meat. Mix it all up.
So you've got all this in a nice big bowl.
Next thing we're gonna do is add a pound of ricotta cheese. Rigat, as my family calls it. And I splurge for the fancy stuff, the Murray's whole milk ricotta. Here we go. This is gonna sound pretty cool. And then we'll add a little bit of Parmesan as well. I'll add about 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese. The recipe that was handed down to me, all it says is just grated cheese. No amounts, just grated cheese, because it's a recipe written by Italian mothers and grandmothers for other Italian mothers and grandmothers, so they know what to do.
They know how much.
They know how much
enough.
it's supposed to be. So I actually had to start writing it down, and so I just say about 1/4 cup, and that's usually about all I need. I might add a little bit more because it's pretty good. I go back and forth between Parmesan and Pecorino Romano because, again, the recipe does not indicate just grated cheese. For most pasta dishes, I prefer Pecorino, but for this one, because of the nuttiness, I like the Parmesan. One thing that I do that's different than my mom is I add some dried parsley to it because it gives it a pop of color. I seem to recall my grandmother having dried parsley in hers because I always remember a little bit of green in there. It adds almost nothing to the flavor, but the aesthetic of it is nice because you slice it open, you're like, oh, there's the smallest amount of green in there. And then finally, we add eggs, and it's really anywhere from 4 to 6 eggs. It kind of just depends on how it looks, how it feels once the whole thing is put together. So we'll do 4, we'll see how it looks. This is definitely cooking by feel.
And this is really kind of the body of the thing. Like that's what's going to sort of hold all that meat and cheese together.
Precisely. So I did 4 eggs to start. We'll mix it up. We'll see how it feels, how it looks. But the smell. The smell of all that cured meat.
That's a lot of cheese.
It's a lot of cheese. I might do one more egg. We'll see. Now, this needs no salt. It feels weird to not salt a dish as I cook it, but there is enough salt in all this cured meat.
And the cheese, too, is going to have a little, I would think.
And the cheese, absolutely. But I will add some pepper. And a little more parsley, just so I can make sure that color's in there. All right, that feels about right. Now, I need to prepare the dough.
Can you tell me a little bit about this dough? Because I'm guessing it's not a flaky pie crust with butter.
No, this is a dough that is flour, eggs, salt, water, and Crisco.
And it's not something you have to keep chilled, like it's...
No. I mean, the ingredients say nothing about, make it ahead of time. I happened to make this dough ahead of time just because, Kate, I knew you were coming over.
And I'm seeing it says melted Crisco, so it's not even a cold... Yeah.
No, it's a pretty tough dough. Honestly, it's not the best dough, but it gets the job done.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding with these large pies that are filled with meat and so forth, that they need to be a sturdy dough that can hold up to all that weight. Because it's tall. It looks like it's going to be kind of tall also.
I have 2 springform pans. This is my bigger one. I might try to do it in the smaller one because it never goes up all the way. It'll only go up about halfway up the springform pan. So there's a few different ways to do this. I mean, I do it in a springform pan because my mom did it in a springform pan, but my mom's cousin Mary Lou does it in a Pyrex, like a 9x13.
Oh, like a rectangle.
Like a rectangle, yeah. So there are a lot of different ways to do this. I think my grandmother did it in a 9x13 as well. I'm adding a little more flour to this because it's a bit sticky for my liking. So what I need to do is break it up into 2 separate balls. One as kind of the bottom and the sides, and the other one is going to be the top. This is the part that I'm not very good at. My mom is very, very, very good at this part. And I don't know, I just don't have the patience for it. My mom will always add some beautiful design to it. Like she'll take part of the dough and make it into leaves or flowers or like a cross because it's served on Easter. And I'm just sort of lucky if it all comes together. My mom made hers like 2 days ago, and she sent me the picture of it, and of course, it's perfect and beautiful. She did a cross on it this year. It looks incredible.
Okay, question. Did you like to cook when you were a kid?
Not really. Cooking came to me a little bit later in life. Holidays in my family were always a really big deal, especially around the meals. The meals were the most important part of kind of the holiday gathering. The meals, I mean, it was usually my grandmother who did everything. And I was pretty much the least useful person in the kitchen. It wasn't even into my mid-20s at Thanksgiving time, my mom would be like, Mark, you can take the pre-made Parkerhouse rolls out of the freezer and put them in the oven. That's all we trust you to do. And so cooking came to me a little bit late, but now I love it. And part of the reason I learned how to cook all these things is because I was usually far away from my family. My family, they all live in Georgia now. I've been in Indiana since 2007, so again, on holidays, especially like Easter, I never got a chance to go home because I was always at school and they don't give you a long Easter break. So, every year my parents would call and say, are you coming home for Easter? And I would say, nope, I'm not coming home for Easter. And my dad, for a very long time, made the exact same joke. He was, what kind of pagan institution did we send you to? Because how dare I not come home for Easter of all the holidays? This is the part where I'm not very good at it. My mom is very, very good at it. Like, mine just sort of barely comes together, and hers is always just like immaculate. Mine's just sort of like, I never quite understood this. This is the problem with me doing this whole thing independently and not having her expertise around me to correct me and say, no, this is how you put it in the springform pan.
But could we talk for just a second about how you did get it in there? So what you did was you rolled out the dough pretty thin, about a 1/4 inch thick.
Yeah.
You stretched it across the top, over the top of the springform pan. Then you just put the filling on top.
Dumped it right in. The dough is pretty hearty. I mean, there's not much that can really break this dough.
And then you sort of pushed the filling in there and kind of spread it
out.
And by that point, the dough was kind of pushed all the way down into the pan. And then you just kind of folded it over the top, and it looks at this point kind of like a galette.
A little bit. And so I have this other slightly smaller piece of dough that I'm just going to put on top, and I'm going to try to do something to make it look nice. So I'm folding this back a little bit. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that looks thicker as well. The top piece.
Yeah, it looks a little thicker. So I'm gonna do my best. It's a good thing I'm making this for the radio and not for television, because it's not the prettiest thing. But it's tasty, which is why I want to make it every year, because it's so tasty. Because as soon as I was away for Easter and not going home for Easter, I realized, oh, that'll be sad not to be home with my family. Oh no, I'm not gonna get pizza again. Okay, so I'm gonna take this other piece of dough and just flop it right here on top. And I'll do my best to kind of pinch it, seal it, do what I can. This is where my mother's patience rewards her, and my impatience makes for a very ugly looking pie.
It looks really good to me at the moment. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's good. So I'm just kind of pinching it, making sure the top is sort of pinched along the side, sealed along the sides.
Does she do some kind of a flourish around the edge, like some kind of decoration? It seems like it'd be hard to do that inside the springform.
She figures something out. She does some kind of flourish on the edge to kind of give it more of a traditional sort of pie edge. Again, mine is just very utilitarian. I unfortunately did not save any extra dough to create any kind of fancy design, which she would always do. Some kind of flower or something or other. All right, so this looks pretty good. The second to last step is to poke a ton of holes in the top. So I'm going to do it a couple different ways. I'm going to take a nice knife here and cut some slits in it to give it more of a traditional pie shape, pie look. According to my mom's cousin Mary Lou, the other thing I'll have to do is grab a fork and just make 1,000 little holes in the top. And this is mostly just so the insides can cook, because it's going to puff up quite a bit. And I say this is the second to last step because there is one last step, and that's, as you might imagine, on a savory pie like this, to do an egg wash on top.
That'll give you that really nice golden crust. I like how it's not delicate at all.
No.
There's nothing fragile about it. It's just like a pretty tough pie you're making here.
Right. It's full of meat. I mean, it's not full of delicate summer berries. It is full of gabagool, so there's nothing fancy about it. And when you serve this, you really get, I mean, it's a huge thing, but you get appetizer portions, because a small little cube of it that is, 2 inches by 2 inches is enough, because it is very, very, very rich. So typically, we'll eat maybe half of this, over the next couple of days. And then my mom and I will do the same thing. Take big chunks of it, freeze it, save it for another day. Or what my mom does is she takes big chunks of it and just gives it away. Gives it to neighbors. There's an Italian family that lives next door to my parents, and they're always sharing their Italian food. So my mom will make her traditional Italian recipes, and they will make their traditional Italian recipes, and especially around the big holidays like Christmas and Easter. Growing up, one of their kids would knock at our door and with a big tray of food, and we would do the same. It's the Italian tradition to just make too much food and to share it. And the family next door knew that our family's gonna know what all these things are. So they would always save a serving for us, and likewise. Because I was born in New Jersey. My mom grew up in New Jersey. Huge Italian-American community in New Jersey. We moved to Georgia when I was about 6. And my mom moved away from her whole family and was kind of separated from a bunch of her cousins and a bunch of her traditions. So we found kind of whoever we could find in the area and just so happened to live right next door to another Italian family that was also from the Northeast. So it felt like we never really went that far. We never really left. All right. I think it's done.
That's a pretty generous egg wash, too. I usually just barely, but I think it'll be good.
It'll be good. Really we'll see.
Nice gloss on there.
Then you bake it at 350 for a whole hour, sometimes longer. And you hope it doesn't spill. And even if it doesn't come out great, it still tastes good. It's egg. It's cheese. It's meat. You can't go wrong. Here we go. Into the oven she goes. Godspeed, little pie, or big pie.
That was Mark Chilla in his home kitchen in Bloomington, Indiana in 2024. After the break, we'll talk with Mark and his mom, Gay, to learn more about this treasured Italian pie and what it's meant to them and their family over the years. Stay with us. Kate Young, this is Earth Eats. Welcome back. We just learned all about how to make pizza Chiena from Mark Chilla in his home kitchen. Now we're in the studio with a special guest.
My name is Gay Chilla, and the mom of Mark Chilla.
And I'm Mark Chilla.
I had the chance to visit with them together last year when Gay was visiting Bloomington just after Easter weekend. While Mark was living in Bloomington, Gay was living in Atlanta, Georgia, but they were both born in New Jersey.
Yeah, actually, we were born in the same hospital.
It's true.
Well, welcome to Earth Eats, both of you. It's great to have you. And we are here to talk about a special family tradition of a dish that you both make. And I would just love to hear one of you say what the name of the dish is and maybe describe it a little bit.
Go ahead, Mom.
Okay. The name of the dish is pizza Chiena, and it is an Italian Easter meat pie.
We tend to call it pizza gain.
Yes. And the reason for that is it's because Chiena, probably more so in the Northeast, but it ended up sounding more like gain instead of Chiene.
Yeah. The Northeast Italian dialect, the dialect that is kind of spoken among Italians in the New Jersey, New York region, is different than the regular Italian dialect. It's like the K's all sound like G's. They voice their K's, so it's a G sound instead of a K sound. And typically all of the final vowels are dropped, and the O's tend to have kind of a U sound to it. And the T's definitely sound like D's. So that's why mozzarella is mozzarella, ricotta is rigat, or pizza Chiena is pizza gain.
And that's just what everybody calls it.
Everyone calls it pizza gain. And what does Chiena mean?
Chiena means stuffed. So it's the Neapolitan dialect for the Italian word piena, which means stuffed.
Mm-hmm. But there are other names for it, right?
There are. It's part of a whole category of pizzas called pizza rustica, which is a rustic pizza. Pizza gain, pizza Chiena, pizza piena, and there are other names too. Pizza rustica.
And they're all kind of the same thing.
They're all the same thing. An Italian Easter stuffed pie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the stuffed aspect of it, because when people hear the word pizza, of course, a certain kind of dish comes to mind. And this is very different from a pizza that you're going to get at a pizzeria.
Exactly. There's dough, of course, for the bottom and the top layer, but it is thick like a quiche, maybe even thicker. And different people make the dough in different ways. So it could be made with lard or some type of a shortening or olive oil and flour and water and eggs. And then the stuffing depends on what your family traditions are or what you like. And it could be dried sausages, fresh sausages that have been cooked, could be cured meats, many different types, prosciutto, ham, salami.
Yeah. Pepperoni.
Yes.
Yeah. And then egg, and then various types of Italian cheeses as well. So ricotta, ergot, mozzarella, and it's all stuffed inside the dough and baked, and it looks kind of like a halfway between kind of a quiche and a calzone almost.
But the dough is not yeasted. So
It's not a yeast dough.
It's not a yeast dough. And it's also very different from what I think of as a pie crust because it's not flaky. You're not using a cold butter or anything. It's thin like a pie crust, but the texture of it is a little different. It feels like it's got to be a little less delicate to hold all those ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Some people do use butter instead of shortening. We grew up using Crisco as part of the dough, but in mine, I use olive oil instead of another type of shortening.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny, if you look up recipes for pizzagane or pizzichina, every single recipe is different. Every single dough recipe is different. Every single ratio of eggs to meat to cheese is different. The types of meat are different. It's like every family has their own tradition for this. And we make the same recipe every single year. We make your cousin Mary Lou's recipe, which you gave to me when I went to college. And we still deviate from our recipes.
Yes.
And you make yours in Georgia, and I make mine in Indiana. And
I make mine different slightly from the way my mother made it and my aunt made it. I don't remember watching my grandmother make it. I don't remember that. She died fairly young.
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember my mom and my aunt making it. And they made it in an oblong rectangular pan. And now I make it in a springform pan.
Mm-hmm.
So every family has a different
every family's
tradition.
different.
Just one more question about the dough. Sorry to focus in on the details so much, but does the dough have any egg in it?
It does when I make it.
I believe it does too.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Because
we didn't bring the recipe in.
Yeah, I forgot to bring the recipe. No, it has egg. The one that I made had egg and shortening and flour and salt. Yeah.
Okay. And water.
And water.
Yes.
But you said you've started using olive oil, which I think is interesting. Like that's a pretty major deviation, I would think. But it also kind of fits. Like I've definitely heard of olive oil doughs that are used in pies like that, where you're trying to hold in a lot of ingredients. And
yes. And I think I started that because I read a few different Italian chefs' versions of it. And I thought, oh, olive oil, that sounds nice.
Yeah. But your mom used shortening.
Yes.
And probably her mom used lard, I'm guessing.
I would guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what kinds of cheeses do you put in it? I know you mentioned a little bit, but what?
Ricotta cheese and mozzarella cheese.
And Parmesan.
And Parmesan. Well, pecorino.
Pecorino. You like pecorino, I like
Romano.
Parmesan.
And just those three. And eggs.
But you were telling me that Grandma, your mom, used a different kind of cheese, right?
Yes. In the Northeast, I've never found it where we live now in the South, but in the Northeast, there was a cheese that everyone used in their pizzagane, which was called basket cheese. And you looked it up.
I looked it up, and it was described as it's the cheese used for Italian Easter pie, pizzagane, and it's somewhere between mozzarella, has like the tanginess of mozzarella, but it's also a little softer like ergot. So I don't know, somewhere in between those two, apparently.
Yes.
Yeah, I wonder if it's kind of like a farmer's cheese.
It is like a farmer's cheese. That's another name for it.
Hearing the name makes me think that this basket, like you can sort of picture how it might be made, and that it's a more rustic.
Yes, it is. And I have heard that name before.
Gay, could you tell me a little bit about Mark and your relationship with Mark through cooking? Because I know Mark as somebody who likes to cook and who's talented in the kitchen and has a lot of refined tastes and a lot of interest in different foods. But is that something he's always been into?
When he was young, no.
I was a picky eater.
He was a picky eater as a youngster. But then in high school, he got more adventurous and would try anything. I don't know when you started actually cooking, maybe in college.
I think mostly when I went to grad school. I didn't cook a lot in college. But I remember when you sent me off to graduate school in Indiana, you sent me off with like a book that was like the kitchen survival guide because you had no faith in my abilities in the kitchen. It was written from a mother to her son to be like, here's how you hard boil an egg, you know?
But ever since he started cooking, we like to talk and compare recipes. And he was so interested in making this. And so it has become an Easter tradition as to when you're going to make it and what are you going to put in it this year and that type of a thing.
So you guys communicate across the miles.
Oh, very much so.
Hers always looks a lot better than mine. You have the touch about how to design the top crust. I do not.
Do other people in your family also make it? And do you guys compare notes?
Well, my brother does. And we compare notes. He's in New Jersey and I'm in Georgia, but he'll send me pictures of what he's making. And I have a cousin who makes it. More on my mother's side. My mother's family, her parents were from the Campania region of Italy, which is about as far south as Naples. And whereas my father's family, they were from Sicily. And so I don't remember anyone on that side of the family making a pizzagana. And I know it originated more in the Campania region. So that could be why.
Yeah, I was wondering, are there different traditions and different foods in the different regions? I mean, I know
Yes,
there
for
are,
sure.
but yeah.
For sure. And different names for this type of a pizza and what they put in it. But mine is similar to our next door neighbor, who is also from that same region, but different, different meats, different things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mark was telling me that you guys managed to live next door to someone who you could share all your food traditions with and who, kind of helped you feel at home.
Yes, for sure. My next door neighbor, Maria, is just a great cook and also kept up a lot of these traditions. She was born in Italy, and so she really kept the same kind of traditions as my parents and aunts and uncles.
And my mom comes from a big Italian family from New Jersey. And so when we moved to Georgia, you're leaving a lot of your family behind. And so to have Maria move next door, it was just like, we have someone who I can share all these recipes with because you were used to sharing all those recipes, all that food with, all of your cousins and all of your neighbors. I mean, everyone
Yes.
on your block was probably Italian, I'm guessing, more or less.
Well, on the block that my mother grew up on, yes, for sure.
This is probably a dish that originated in
the Campania region.
Campania region, but some of the ingredients that are used in this were probably different than the ingredients that were used in Italy, like the inclusion of pepperoni might have been more of an American version because that was the closest that people could find to more traditional Italian dry sausage.
And the use of, just plain ham instead of an Italian ham.
That's probably Italian mothers and grandmothers going to their local market, getting whatever they could that looked similar to what their mothers and grandmothers saw in local markets in Italy.
So what kind of variations have you done over the years? And it sounds like you don't go too radical. Like it's not like you're stuffing it with zucchini or anything. So
no, I traditionally put in the cheeses that I mentioned. And in terms of the meats, I put in prosciutto,
Genoa salami,
pepperoni, and ham.
Right.
And I chop it in small pieces.
I do the same. I've experimented with different things. Instead of ham, I've done capicola in the past, gabagool. I've done different kinds of prosciutto. I've done the cube prosciutto instead of the sliced prosciutto. I've done Italian dry sausage, though I find it to be a little bit too strong. It overwhelms the dish.
Parsley in yours.
I include parsley in mine just to give it a pop of color. It's springtime after all. You go to the store and you go to the deli section and see what you can find, see what looks good, gather about a pound of it all together and chop it up.
Mark was also telling me a little bit about, I don't know if this is necessarily a religious connection to the dish, but it sounds like because it's at Easter and it's the end of Lent, that it is sort of meant to be an indulgence and a...
Exactly. Because Lent was such an austere time and a time to fast in different ways, all of these rich meats and rich cheeses were not used many centuries ago. And then as a way to celebrate the special holiday of Easter and the breaking of the fast, this dish was created to include all of the things that you hadn't had for the whole 6 weeks of Lent.
Meats, cheeses, eggs.
Yes.
Yeah, all of those rich foods. It's a very rich, a very indulgent dish. Doesn't your cousin have a funny name for it? Pizza gain a pound or two?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Well, one of the things that occurs to me about it, and I'm just making a guess here because I don't know the tradition, but when I think about the time of year and I think about cured meats, if you think about people living rurally and maybe they've preserved these meats throughout to enjoy throughout the winter, there's probably some conserving of it that goes on. And then Lent is a part of that where you're just not even eating those things. And then it's spring. And so you kind of know if you're going to make it through the winter with what you have stored or not. And so you can be like, yeah, we're going to be good. We can fill this pie up with all the meats that we haven't, I don't know. That's just a thought of like, the growing season is ahead of us. There's going to be more fresh food. There's going to be more fresh meats maybe coming. And so it's okay to use up some of these that we've been storing. It's just...
And that could be. I don't remember having any conversations with my grandparents or my mother and dad about how that tradition got started. And I have tried to read some articles about the whole thing to begin with.
It's all family lore.
Yeah, but I definitely think that it's an Easter pie.
Yeah,
what you guys have said makes total sense, that it's time to indulge.
Time to indulge.
Yeah.
Now, my grandmother always had the rule that typically you'd make it on Good Friday, and then we were not allowed to have it until noon on Saturday, the Saturday before Easter. Then she would cut into the pie.
Mm-hmm.
It's the time to break the fast.
Yeah.
Interesting. But she made it on Good Friday. And it is something that you make ahead of time and put it in the fridge.
Yes.
It's supposed to really get set.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
It is not, really eaten hot. It's baked in the oven, but not eaten hot, typically.
Room temperature.
Yeah.
Pizza Chiena, or pizza gain if you're from New Jersey. It's a pie, but it's savory. The crust is hearty, and it's packed with rich meats and cheeses. You eat it on Easter, but you make it on Good Friday. It sits in the fridge, waiting for the celebration of breaking the restrictions of Lent in the Catholic tradition. I'm talking with Mark Chilla, former host, announcer, producer, program director, and so much more here at WFIU, in the studio with his mom, talking about a family food tradition. Earth Eats, I'm Kate Young, and we're back with Mark Chilla and his mom, Gay Chilla, talking about Pizza Chiena, an Italian stuffed Easter pie filled with eggs, meats, and cheeses. With Mark living in Bloomington for many years, and Gay living in Atlanta, They don't usually spend Easter together, but they connect over their favorite Easter food, each making their own pie and comparing notes. This conversation took place last spring when Mark's parents were visiting Bloomington. Okay, so this interview is happening close enough to Easter that you two have been able to bring slices with you to taste, so you guys can compare and contrast what you've made this year. Do you want to go ahead and give those a taste?
You sliced all these up before entering here, so I can't actually tell which one is mine, which one is yours.
These on this side are mine,
Okay.
and these over here are yours.
Okay. All right, I'm going to try yours then.
Okay.
And you can try one of mine. All right. It's so good.
Yours is very good.
Yours is a lot lighter than mine. I think I included one more egg than you did this year. Oops.
Very tasty.
I want you to check out the crust and see how different it is for you, Mark, given that hers is made with olive oil.
I can't taste the olive oil, but it's a light crust. It's really nice.
Yours is delicious.
I indulged. I got the fancy stuff. It's an expensive meal. You know, when you buy a pound of those cured meats, and it adds up.
I wanted to know how and when they typically serve this dish.
I like to serve it on Easter Sunday as part of the appetizers.
Yeah, it's an appetizer.
So I cut it into very small pieces because it is rich, and I cut it into small pieces on a plate. And we have other appetizers before the Easter meal, but everybody always looks forward to having that, just a little taste of something very rich.
You know what I taste in yours? I taste the pecorino. I can taste that.
Really?
Yeah, I can taste the nuttiness of that. It tastes really good. So I use Parmesan in mine, but that's the thing that comes through in yours that I don't have in mine. Maybe I'll use pecorino next year.
What I think is interesting about it, too, is that there's not a lot of, there's just like salt and pepper in it, right? And you put a little parsley in yours, but the flavor is coming from the spices in the meats. And from the, like you were saying, the nuttiness of the cheeses, like that's where the flavors are coming from. You're not spicing it up.
No, in fact, I don't use any salt in mine.
No.
Right, that's right. You said you don't need it.
I put some pepper, ground pepper, but I don't use any salt because the meats are salty enough.
Yeah.
And the cheese, too. The cheese, the burrito would be.
Yes.
You don't need any salt in this dish. You feel it. I mean, it's all there. You don't need to add any extra. Yours is really good.
Yours is too, Mark. I'm enjoying that. Another little taste.
Yeah. Kate, do you want a piece?
Would you like to have some, Kate?
I should probably try a sample of Gay's because I did try Mark's.
So this one is my mom's, I believe, on this side. So you can take whatever chunk you want. Yeah. Yeah, yours is light. I can taste the ricotta, that comes through. I spent a lot on the ricotta this year, too. I bought the fancy Murray's ricotta from the deli case. So,
okay.
Which was like $9 or something crazy like that.
I used the Galbani.
Yeah, it's really good. My favorite thing about it, I think, is the pepperoni. I really like the very spicy meats. So
yeah, instead of ham, I've done hot capicola in the past, but again, I couldn't find it this year, so I just did ham. And you always use ham. I've seen some recipes that use big chunks of meat. You know, we tend to make them pretty small, dice them.
Yes.
But I've seen some people like, big hunks of ham and big hunks of Genoa salami. Seen some recipes out there on the internet.
On the internet, I've seen very interesting different recipes of different layers. They make it more
like a lasagna almost.
Yeah, like a layer of meat, a layer of cheese, another layer of meat, another layer of cheese, and so when you cut it, it looks a little unique.
Yeah, that sounds really nice. Like I can picture it just adding a whole nother element of sort of fanciness, and the fact that it's chilled and really set up would make that look really good when you slice into it. Yeah.
And I've seen recipes with broccoli rabe or spinach and
more typical like Italian sausage that you have to cook and all kinds of different things. I started making it because I loved eating it every year, and I could never make it home for Easter. And I was so used to eating it on Easter. And I was like, well, if I can't make it home for Easter, gotta make it myself.
Yeah, because it's not something you're going to find. You're not going to be able to go special order one.
Right.
In most places. In the Northeast, you can buy, you can buy at some Italian specialty stores. You can buy a piece in whatever size you want if you don't make it at home.
But Easter's also a special holiday for our family in particular.
Oh, yes. Mark was born the day after Easter because one Easter dinner at my mother's house, I was in labor the entire day.
So you probably took a bite of Grandma's pizza gain and then went into labor shortly afterwards.
Forgot about that.
So it's a time of Mark's birthday and...
My son's birthday is also the exact same day. My son and I, Frank and I, share a birthday, so it's a big time of year for us.
What I like about making this is the fact that it's a tradition that came from my family from many generations ago and through the years. And so I'm excited that Mark wants to preserve this tradition because it just means that maybe it'll pass on to another generation. And it's
Frank or Ben are going to be, they're going to be tasting this throughout their childhood.
That is
so
true.
Chances are they're going to want to come back to it as well.
Yeah.
It's just something that connects us and connects generations. And that's why I like it.
Do you think your cousin Mary Lou would have liked it if we posted the recipe on the website?
I don't think she would mind.
I was wondering, is it a family secret? Do we need to change a couple things in it?
We'll credit Mary Lou on this one, yeah, because it's the recipe that I use. It's the recipe that you use, yeah.
Well, actually, it's Mary Lou's and it's also my mother's and Aunt Angie's, and I don't know who tweaked it
Right.
which way. I also have my mother's
Recipe?
Yeah.
I've never seen that.
Well, I'll have to show it to you sometime.
Maybe we'll include that one.
We have Gay's cousin Mary Lou's recipe for pizza Chiena, shared with permission, on our website, eartheats.org. Well, thank you both so much. This has really been lovely.
Thank you, Kate.
That was Gay Chilla, mother of Mark Chilla, whose voice you might recognize from the WFIU airwaves. Mark has since moved back to Atlanta, where his parents live, and he says he will be spending Easter at his mom and dad's house this year, along with his wife Ashley, his kids, his sister and her husband and daughter, and more family and friends. He says they will definitely have pizza Chiena, although his mom Gay will be the only one making it this year. Big thanks to Alexis Carvajal for extensive production assistance on the recipes section of this episode. And as Alexis is finishing up her last week with us, I want to say thank you for all of your thoughtful work on the show, and I'm wishing you the best in your next chapter. That's it for the show this week. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. I hope you had a chance to check out the first chapter of our special series, Earth Eats Wild, all about foraging for wild food in the Midwest. The first 3 episodes are focused on spring foraging. We learn about the joys of chickweed from Stephanie Solomon, hear tips for finding morels from Rose Harding, and Monique Philpott, founder of Soulcraft Forest and Folk School, talks about how she developed her connection to the natural world and what we can gain from increased awareness of the edible plants growing all around us. You can find these first 3 episodes on our website at eartheats.org or in your favorite podcast app. The summer episodes drop in May and June, starting with Summer Berries. In September, look for 3 more episodes about fall foraging. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram for bonus images and videos at Earth Eats. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. The Earth Eats team includes Eobon Binder, Alexis Carvajal, Alex Chambers, Toby Foster, Leo Pies, Daniela Richardson, Samantha Schimenauer, Peyton Whaley, and we partner with Harvest Public Media. Special thanks this week to Mark Chilla and Gay Chilla. Earth Eats is produced and edited by me, Kate Young. Our theme music is composed by Aaron Toby and performed by Aaron and Matt Toby. Additional music on the show comes to us from Universal Production Music. Our executive producer is Eric Bolstridge.